Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings trilogy set an almost unreachable bar for fantasy storytelling. Critically acclaimed, commercially successful, and beloved by generations of fans, the trilogy redefined cinematic adaptations of fantasy literature. Any subsequent entry into the world of J.R.R. Tolkien would inevitably be met with comparison, scrutiny, and high expectations. That made The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, a daring undertaking from the start. Released more than a decade after Jackson's final Hobbit film, this animated prequel explores an earlier chapter of Rohin's history, one not deeply detailed in Tolkien's original text. Yet despite underwhelming box office results and a low Rotten Tomatoes critic score of 48%, The War of the Rohirrim deserves a place on every Tolkien fan's watchlist. It may be a flop, but it's rich with lore. On paper, The War of the Rohirrim had all the makings of a hit. Produced with the blessing of New Line Cinema and directed by acclaimed animator Kenji Kamiyama, the film sought to expand the cinematic Middle-earth timeline without disrupting the core trilogy. It tells the story of Helm Hammerhand, the legendary ninth king of Rohan, whose namesake fortress plays a central role in the Two Towers. The film details Rohan's brutal conflict with the Dunlendings and the siege that forced the Rohirrim into their mountain stronghold during the long winter. While some critics took issue with its animation style and the expanded narrative built from just a few pages of Tolkien's appendices, others overlooked the film's most important function: deepening our understanding of a world millions already treasure. In adapting what was essentially a historical footnote in the Return of the King appendices, The War of the Rohirrim turns obscure lore into a sweeping tragedy, adding emotional weight and historical resonance to places and people that had previously lived only in name. It honors Tolkien while filling in the gaps. Though the film necessarily expands on limited source material, The War of the Rohirrim is remarkably respectful of Tolkien's vision. Major canonical events, the duel between Helm and Fricka, the siege of Helm's Deep, the death of Helm, and the rise of Freelaf, are all faithfully represented. Even smaller details, like the rumor that Helm became a cannibal, are integrated cleverly into the narrative, attributing the myth to battlefield scavengers like orcs and trolls. The most significant addition is Helm's daughter, Hera, a fully realized original character who steps into the role of protagonist. Critics of the film have questioned her presence, arguing that she contradicts the canon which claimed Eowyn was the first Rohirrim woman to take up arms. However, Tolkien's own writings reference earlier times when women of Rohan had to ride to war. Hera's role doesn't rewrite history, it enriches it. Her inclusion also allows the story to explore themes of legacy, gender roles, and leadership, creating emotional stakes and personal conflict that elevate the narrative. Much like Eowyn, Hera represents courage in defiance of tradition, and her arc mirrors the strength of Rohan itself during its darkest hour. It deepens the lore of the film trilogy. For casual viewers of Jackson's trilogy, The War of the Rohirrim provides vital context that was only hinted at in the Two Towers. Helm's Deep isn't just a fortress. It's a monument to one of Rohan's greatest kings, a man whose ghostly presence is felt in the ancient horn Theoden reverently holds and the solemn statue that stands within the Hornburg. This film shows why Helm became a legend, why his memory endured, and why that stronghold bears his name. The film also enriches the long-standing animosity between the Rohirrim and the Dunlendings. In The Lord of the Rings, Saruman manipulates the Dunlendings into serving his war effort, stoking their rage with promises of vengeance. The War of the Rohirrim shows that this hatred runs much deeper than Saruman's propaganda. It stems from betrayal, exile, and cultural conflict stretching back generations, something that makes Saruman's later exploitation of them even more tragic and believable. Even Saruman himself makes a subtle appearance, with archival audio from the late Sir Christopher Lee repurposed to honor his legacy. His brief cameo shows how he insinuated himself into Rohan's political sphere following the war, quietly acquiring Isengard and laying the foundation for his future betrayal. It's a rewarding moment for fans tracking the full arc of his character. The real value of The War of the Rohirrim. No, The War of the Rohirrim isn't on the same level of spectacle or polish as Jackson's original trilogy. But it doesn't have to be. It's a bold experiment that breathes life into Middle-earth's lesser-known histories and proves that Tolkien's world can flourish in animation just as powerfully as in live action. Like Star Wars, The Clone Wars, or The Tales of the Jedi, this film exists to fill the narrative cracks, to give names and faces to people whose stories deserve to be told. Even with its creative liberties, The War of the Rohirrim feels more reverent to its source than many recent blockbuster adaptations. For devoted fans, this film is not a cash-in or a shallow side story. It's an invitation to return to Rohan, to understand its people more deeply, and to see the legend behind the wall of Helm's Deep. Skipping it based on scores alone means missing out on one of the most soulful expansions of the Tolkien cinematic universe to date.